Good morning. I'm Booker T. Jones, and we're live at Little Brown Publishing in New York City.
And I'm Phil Marino. I was lucky enough to work with Booker on his memoir. And I'm excited to sit down and facilitate a little Q&A with some of his fans, and I count myself among them. I always think it's pretty fascinating when you do a lot of writing for music, obviously. I'm always curious about, you talk about this in the book, how sort of naturally these melodies and rhythms and tunes come to you. And I love that opening in the first chapter when Al Jackson's like, "What you got, Jones?" And you have to, something comes out of your fingertips. What was it like, so sitting down in front of a typewriter, was there that same sort of natural kind of outpouring?
No, with music, there's the involuntary. When I'm driving down the highway, there's the involuntary melody and this beautiful thing that I'll never remember that happens in my mind that I would love to remember. With the book, I would have to put a subject in my head and then words would come. But it has to be placed there. So that's why when I first got the idea to do this, one of the first books I read was the Anne Lamott, Bird by Bird. We went to church, believe it or not, and she was sitting behind us in Mill Valley, and her kids were making noise and making all this corruption, so I couldn't miss her. She was sitting right behind me. And she had conveniently written this book, Bird by Bird, Instructions on Life and Writing.
Right.
So that kind of got me into a disciplined mode about actually doing my essays, but it's not it's not involuntary.
Interesting. But you mentioned like getting the idea to do the book, and what sort of confluence of life events sort of led you to making that decision?
In Chicago, South Side, pretty much run out of musical ideas and needed to get started with some lyrics and some new songs. So I got pen and paper out and hotel notebooks and just started writing for practice on different subjects. Forced my mind to go to this subject, write on that subject, and the most convenient thing, the subject I knew most, was my life in Memphis and my life at Stax and my life at trying to learn music, and those were the subjects that came up.
And what was, because I think writing this, when we first saw it, you guys had quite a bit on the page when this was first being discussed with Little Brown, and then the book went through quite a bit of shaping as it came time to really get it ready for publication. But during that process, I'm curious, what was sort of the most fun part of it for you, and what you found most difficult?
Well, the most fun part, of course, was the music part, because then I got to describe these journeys that I got to go on as a privilege of being an arranger and producer among these genius-type people that I was surrounded with in so many different locations at so many different times. And my only job was to focus on my job, but it was fun. It was like being on a raft, sailing through all these musical territories and taking all these chances and having things work out and having all these emotional excursions with songs and having people like Otis take us on the ups and the downs, So that was the hard part, was focusing. Reminding myself that this is not a game, that this is not a time to mess up, this is not a time to fool around and let my mind drift off to someplace, in the past that I had a job to do here, and these are the chords, this is the notes, this is the structure, this is what we're doing, be here right now, and that took some real discipline.
Yeah, I can imagine so. We got some questions coming in, so I'll turn to this. Here's one from Joseph in Bettendorf, Iowa. What is your favorite memory of Stax?
Oh, Joseph from Bettendorf, Iowa. All I can think about, I got to clear my mind, is being on a bus with about 60 people from Indiana University in a hot black uniform headed towards your area to play for a football game for an Indiana University Saturday morning, and having no sleep in Iowa. But of course, you guys won the game, which you always did, because I was from Indiana. But I'm sorry, what was it?
What was the favorite? Do you have a favorite memory from your time at Stax, or is that kind of hard to pluck out?
The moment that I realized that David Porter had come to get me an algebra class and instructed me to go down and get the baritone sax in the band room, had the keys to Mr. Martin's fast Plymouth, that he was taking me to Stax Records to go through a door that I had wanted to go through for years,
right,
in a room where people were recording music, was probably my most successful moment in my life.
Right. That's special.
Just being led through the door there behind him.
Do you? And there's some of these in the book, but anything you want to share now about touring with Neil Young? Any particular stories?
Yes, Neil Young. The first time we were on stage together was in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, cool.
Doing Bob Dylan's song, a Bob Dylan song, and Neil is probably one of the most intense musicians I ever worked with.
Interesting.
And a man with a purpose on stage and in the studio. Very difficult to say no to. A very focused musician, and just pursues his purpose without without shame, much to the benefit of his audiences. But a very accomplished songwriter. Only Love Can Break Your Heart was the first one I think that I recorded of his on Rita Coolidge. So I knew about him before I met him through his songs.
Yeah, when you say intense, you mean in terms of, you know, when he's playing the music, he's just so involved with it, or
24 hours a day.
Really?
I can't say that we had
Huh.
the type of friendship that was ever non-business.
Interesting. So is that interesting? So from Clayton here from Minneapolis, Minnesota. How do you choose your set list when you're playing live?
Playing live, the set list is pretty easy to choose. I have a large repertoire, but I do like to do new songs. I like to vary. I still have, dreams of bringing my sax on stage again, playing various instruments, and working with new people. There's a few staples that I'm going to play probably every night, no matter where I am, and one of those is Green Onions.
Okay.
I'm going to probably try to play Time Is Tight and Hip Hopper, one of those. And then some of the songs that influenced me to become a musician, like Ray Charles's What I Say, some of the songs that I was influenced by, and then some of the songs that I was influential in producing, like Bill Withers' Ain't No Sunshine, or maybe one of his, and some of the wonderful tunes that I got to participate as a sideman. Bob Dylan's Knock on Heaven's Door is one of my favorites. So it's a hard choice. It's a narrowing down of material.
I don't think I know. How many instruments can you play at this point, competently?
I have lost muscles in my jaws by not playing trombone and brass instruments. So those are counted out. There's a callus up here in my mouth that I don't have anymore from playing reeds, oboe, baritone sax. Those are out. Saxophones and oboe. I sent all those instruments to New Orleans. I don't know if I told you about that. I sent them to after Katrina. So I'm down to guitar and keyboard and bass.
But through your life, that's got to be about 10?
About that.
Anything you want to learn in terms of instruments?
Yes, I still have taken a few lessons on modular synths.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I
Really?
love the way Herbie Hancock has a mastery over his modular sense. He knows what to plug in where. People like Malcolm, blanking on his last name, is did Stevie Wonder sense.
Uh-huh.
They know where to plug these things in to get the sounds. I have one, and I'm just getting into it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's go with
Malcolm Cecil. That's the guy that was working
Okay.
for Stevie Wonder. Yeah.
Let's see here. We already talked about that. So this is probably tough for you. I mean, you collaborated with so many people. And this is from J. Michael in Overland Park, Kansas. Do you have a favorite artist that you've collaborated with over the years?
Collaborated.
A lot of people. You gotta comb through there.
The easiest collaboration was with Willie Nelson.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just a natural music man with a natural instinct, and the inflections that he made with his body let the band know how to play different songs. With his face, with his eyes. We grew up on so much of the same music. Most famously, Hoagy Carmichael's Stardust. I'm sure he was playing that as a kid, and I was too. So we just hit it off together. We had
Right.
we had very few words. We just played a lot of music.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. I should mention, you guys watching this can easily get the book. There's a link, I think, on the page here. I can't see it, so I'm a little blind here. Oh, I can actually premiercollectibles.com/book ERT. And I wish we had a keyboard here because I still haven't heard the musical compositions that go along with the text. Is there anywhere people can hear that yet? And just for those watching, every part in the book has a musical composition that goes along with it, and it's going to be online
to reflect
It's
the
gonna
musical, the sentiment of that chapter. I wrote a phrase.
Was that hard to do?
Yes, because some chapters touched on different musical sentiments.
Right.
So I had to choose the most prevalent.
Are you writing new music every day? Is that something that... No.
Yes, I'm shaking my head from... That's the guy, when you see that guy walking down the street, when he stops to decide what coffee, he stops the music in his head. It's either somebody else's music or mine.
Right.
But it's always going, and that's the cursing, that's the blessing, and that's the curse.
Do you listen to music a lot while you're
I
just...
do. I
all
love
the
it.
time?
Yeah, I've got great phones and huge music library on
That's
my,
great. Yeah. Are you a streamer? Spotify?
Yeah.
or-
Oh, absolutely. I'm hooked.
Yeah. Here's a good question. Any advice for a young musician trying to make it?
It's a great time to go into music now because there's so much access to the world, and it's a terrible time to go into music right now because there are so many people doing great music now. So, but the thing, I think, the boat you want to try to get on is that of believing in yourself. It's pretty easy to doubt because so many people will say, no, I don't like it, you're not doing it right, but somehow you gotta get that confident thing going.
Yeah. Here's another one. What was the biggest struggle you faced over the years in music, and did it end up making you stronger?
The biggest struggle I had was with my family at Stax Records. And we started off on the wrong foot because we found success early, but no one really understood my need to be instructed in so many areas that I appeared to have proficiency in. I appeared to be a guy who knew how to play a song from just listening to it. And so I could fake it, I could hear it, I could remember it, but I didn't know intellectually, just like I had to learn how to spell words to write, I had to be taught.
Right.
So many aspects of music that I didn't know, and I didn't know what went before. I knew pretty much what went blues-wise before, but as far as musical structure goes, I had to go through all the European composers. I had to learn about African music. I had to learn about Eastern music. I had to learn how it was put together intellectually by the masters. And then I had to learn how to conduct. I didn't know where beat one was with a baton. And none of that stuff. Couldn't get it in. Well, I could have gotten it in Memphis State, but Indiana was there, and there were great professors that they hired from all over the world. They're such famous professors, such good. Jano Starker, Thomas Beaversdorf, the top of their game. David Baker in jazz. So I got to sit next to some of the jazz greats in college, but I got told how to do things, and it was just a lifesaver for me.
Is there any kind of music you can't really ever get into, or are you pretty much omnivore when it comes to kinds of music?
Omnivore.
Omnivore, yeah.
I think in order to really understand Western music, you have to study some Eastern music.
Interesting.
To understand what we're doing, our rules are made by Bach and people, from France, and so they're the mathematical people. Our music is structured on a 12-bar scale and numbers. Our whole the Egyptians came up with the 12 months of the year. Those are our numbers. In the East and China, they disregard that completely. That doesn't exist. It's much freer. So their instruments are made according to their concept. So it's good to have, I think, the different perspectives to be completely free inside yourself.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, this is a question coming in from the audience. What do you think of today's music compared to the soul-filled music of your time? It's a bit of a leading question, but have you noticed any real sort of differences between the stuff that's coming out today?
Well, I've seen a trend of young musicians to pay attention to music from my time now, and I think it actually helps them.
Yeah. In terms of touring, I'm just curious when you mentioned different countries. Are there countries you haven't played in yet that you'd be curious to try to go and play? Have you done Asia and all that, and have you toured pretty much everywhere?
I haven't played in Africa, and I haven't heard real African drums yet.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I haven't played on that continent, but I've played
Have
South America.
you been down there at all?
Pardon?
Have you been to Africa at all?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. My family's, of course, from Africa, and of course, I'd love to go to Nigeria and that area and see people that look like me.
Right. What is the number one thing you want readers to take away from the book?
I hope that people from this book, young people, I hope they can find an example of how to stay inspired and how to believe in themselves and not give up and actually reach the goal.
Right.
In some direction that they devise.
Okay. And that's important. So in your opinion, this is from Nick from Blackburn, South Victoria. In your opinion, what really set Booker T and the MGs apart from the other house bands like the Wrecking Crew or Motown?
Well, I'm not super familiar with the Wrecking Crew. I know James Gatson, and I met the son of the bass player. I think Booker T and the MGs had more freedom than the Wrecking Crew in determining the repertoire and in writing the music. I don't know if James Jamerson had the freedom that Duck Dunn did in the songwriting. I think Motown would have maybe taken a different course if those guys had more freedom. I'm guessing they were told what to do, what to play, but we weren't told anything to do. We had complete freedom.
And that would make quite a bit of a difference, I imagine. I'm curious, now the book is out and everything, and you can pick it up at premiercollectibles.com/book, ERT. It's done, it's written. Are there any stories now that it's being published that you wish you would have gotten in here, that you weren't able to sneak in?
Well, Phil, I'll be honest with you. I'm about to be 75 years old. It's in a lot of cases, it's a miracle that I'm here, that I've survived. Survived the streets of Memphis, hard streets. Some of my contemporaries, you know, they came to Memphis from Detroit, from Miami. I remember one night that Wilson Pickett told me, you know, little young, I can't say the word, you glad I didn't shoot you. I mean, you're lucky I didn't shoot you. I was a prankster. Yeah. I deserved it. I'd gone to Wilson. I knew they were smoking in there. And I went to Wilson's door, had a hotel in Hollywood, and rapped on the door real hard. Police, police! Oh, shit. Yeah, he was so mad. He said, I found out that was you. Boy, you could have got shot. But I didn't know any better. But then I had the protection of people like Albert King, and, you know, and had protection on. I don't know how I walked through those streets in Memphis and really stayed in one piece. So many of my contemporaries didn't make it. And then there was, I missed the Vietnam War. I graduated high school, battle group commander. I don't know if that means, but I was the leader of the National Defense Cadet Corps in Memphis, Tennessee. So I had risen from lieutenant colonel through the ranks, and so I should have been drafted. I should have gone to Vietnam as a lieutenant. And that would have meant that some sergeant would have been telling me what to do, in control of my life. And so there was more than one who stood next to me on that field that didn't make it back. Came back in a wooden box. That's tough. That's tough. My grades at Indiana were just barely high enough that I missed the draft. Just barely high. You had to have a 3.0. Or you went out of college, African American. You went on the, into the military. Right. So some of those are not in here because there were so many, but the more pertinent stories are in there. The perspectives of Stax. I think people will be more interested in hearing about Stax records from the inside and how the songs were made. Some of the musicians can learn what chords we were playing, how we put the chords together, how we worked emotionally. So that kind of stuff is in here. So that was a choice that had to be made.
Gotta know, at this point in your career, do you ever get nervous before you play on stage?
Every time.
Every time?
I think I'm over it. I think I'm over it. I'm back there, and then I just get this thing, and then I say, okay, well, you can make 2 mistakes. You know.
Do you actually normally make a mistake here and there when you're playing?
I pretty much do every time. Hopefully it's not pretty unnoticeable, but it's pretty hard to get through a show without messing up somewhere.
Interesting. Yeah. Here's another question coming in. If you could go back in your career, is there anything you would change or do differently?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
If I could change something, in 1968, I would have had a meeting with Steve Cropper and Al Jackson and Duck Dunn, and I would have introduced them to Herb Alpert, and I would have had him make the proposal to them that he made to me about my life and the possibilities and what could have been done in Los Angeles with our abilities, the company we could have created there, the people that we could have worked with. We could have probably worked with Aretha Franklin and just Bill Withers and just so many artists that were gravitating to Los Angeles. Los Angeles had so much. Billy Preston. We could have had a monster production company in Los Angeles had they been willing to just spend 6 months out there. But the only one that came was Eddie Floyd, and but I couldn't convince anybody to come from Memphis to Los Angeles. But Herb was certain, and with his partner Jerry, and they had such good producers out there ready to set us up. They had Quincy Jones there, and they had such capable people for us to work with.
Interesting. What was the big obstacle to going to LA? It was just they liked the Memphis. They didn't want to leave home, kind of thing.
Memphis was warm. It was comfortable. I knew it. I didn't have to worry about anything there. It was where I came from. I knew the people. In Los Angeles, I didn't know people. I had to meet new people, and it was familiar. And it was getting out of my comfort zone.
Good question coming in here. My 12-year-old son is learning several instruments: piano, organ, percussion, and baritone sax. I'm sure he would love a word.
What's the age of the son?
12 years old.
Oh, okay. Name Booker?
Changed his name to Booker. That's a lot of instruments, though. Yeah. What is your advice to someone, that age range, that wants to get into music? Just practice, 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 or is there?
Yeah, at that age, I had a few heroes. I had Leroy Cooper on baritone saxophone, and Hank Crawford. He was working for Ray Charles. Both of them were. And what were the other instruments he was playing?
Piano, organ, percussion, and baritone sax.
Yeah, those are the instruments I was playing on.
Yeah.
And I had piano heroes. Ray Charles on piano, and just pick some heroes and try to do some imitating, and try to do what they do. And
well, your parents are pretty instrumental in your music career.
They were.
And you play with your son on stage.
Yeah.
Did you push them into music at all, or kind of let them? And you talk about this a bit in the book, but how was that trying to,
Phil, I discovered my son. I discovered my son. I heard a guitar player in my house, and we were living in West Hollywood, and I thought the TV was on the channel because there was this great guitar I was hearing out of the den. And there he was sitting with his guitar. So that slipped up on me.
Oh, that's cool.
But I knew he was a great soccer player. And so I hired him just because of what I saw on the soccer field.
Right.
Anybody that could play with that much heart could be in my band.
Right.
But I didn't know that he had learned.
Oh, so you never pushed him at all?
Never pushed him one move. I facilitated by buying him a guitar maybe 2 years before that, or 3. But I didn't know that he had gone so far with the instrument.
Is there anyone you haven't worked with yet that you would like to work with at this point?
My son is at the top of that list. He's showing the most promise of anyone that I know. But I'm interested in doing more with Matt Berninger, who's become a friend of mine. He sang on the road from Memphis with Sharon Jones.
Okay.
And he has a band called The National, and he's just a prolific, great songwriter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that when you collaborate with these people? Does all that happen in the studio, or do you guys go out and get coffee and figure out how these songs are going to play? How can you talk about that briefly? How those collaborations work, or is it different for every single person?
Well, because everybody travels so much now, we use the internet a lot.
Oh, so you do? Oh,
yeah,
really?
It used to be you had to travel and meet in a hotel room, but I mean, songs can be put together now one verse at a time, with email and with messages and with the internet. So it's really convenient.
Has that been beneficial, you think, to the process?
It has been. I've had access to a lot more material than I would. Like, I can go to the gym and hear Matt's idea for a song, when I'm on the treadmill.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. You can send it to my phone. So you get a lot more done.
Interesting. I'm going to mention it one more time: premiercollectibles.com/book, ERT. And I got 22 questions here for you, Booker. I'm going to do them in 2 minutes. Some of these will be pretty easy. Some of them are going to be tough. The first one's pretty easy. Where were you born?
Born in Memphis, Tennessee.
Right. Who would you want to play? Who would you want to play in a movie?
Oh my goodness.
I'm glad I don't have to answer that question. That's a toughie.
Well, I don't know how they do the music in movies now. I don't know if the person has to really play like they used to be.
Well, let's just go to 3. What was your first job? First ever gig? Not
gig.
Actually,
first ever musical job?
No, just say job. Yeah, what was your first job?
I stood on a corner with the Memphis World in my hand and sold the newspaper for 4 cents or something like that to people. I tried to pick the busiest corner I could find. I think it was Advance in Lauderdale.
Oh, that was before you were doing the whole route?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. What is your biggest fear? Any big fears?
What is my biggest fear? I have had a lot of, that's a big question, because I have had a lot of thought about fear itself, and I have made huge battles with myself to not be afraid, and to be informed of how I deal with fear. My biggest fear is that this beautiful society I live in is not going to come together in time to do things with the earth that we need to do on a timely manner, because we have so many beautiful young souls coming to the earth that need us to get our act together and take care of. I mean, there's fires happening in California right now. There's water rising in Europe, and all the signs are there. So we need to make fast, immediate changes, and we need to have courage, courage as adults to do for the children what we owe them. And I am afraid that we won't get the consensus to do that.
It's a much better answer than mine. I would have said cockroaches,
Spiders.
spiders, but that's beautiful. Who makes you laugh the most?
That woman right there somehow comes up with something at the oddest moments that will make me laugh, and that's our relationship. She keeps me laughing.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Booker's wife, Nan, is over here. You can't see her off camera, but she's there supporting us. What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Well, my fridge is changing. Right now, I keep lemon water in my fridge because I'm going to be 75 years old, so I need instant vitamin C. So I drink lemon water. That's pretty much the one thing I make sure is in there.
That's pretty disciplined of you.
Yeah, well, it used to be sugar. It used to be it used to be all sorts of sweeteners and stuff.
What is the last concert you went to?
Last concert I went to, who did I see? So last concert I went to, did I see? It's been a while.
The people we opened for, at the Hollywood Bowl, the Pink Martini band.
Oh, Pink Martini, yeah, I saw them. I saw them at in the desert in Los Angeles. Yeah, they were great. What's that festival out there?
Oh, is it
Coachella.
Coachella?
Coachella, I saw Pink Martini out there. That was great.
So who is the most interesting person you met recently?
Most interesting person I met recently.
These are tough.
I met I met a producer on the plane, a guy who does commercials, and he's English, and he insisted that I read the book *Sapiens*, and he brought the book to my gig. He was so insistent that I read it, he brought it to Ronnie Scott's. Now, I've got his name on my list, but I'm blanking on his name.
That's okay. Yeah.
But he said, you
On the plane, though?
Yeah.
It's a good place to meet interesting people.
Yeah.
All right, so what is your middle name? The T in Booker T. Jones.
It's Italian. It's Talia for iron, for worker, and Ferro for iron.
Oh, cool.
The name is Talia Ferro.
What is your biggest pet peeve? I want to ask Nan these questions too and see if you guys' answers line up here.
What's my biggest
pet peeve?
Being rushed.
No. You won't believe it. It's awful. I am so annoyed that you cannot get off a plane without walking through the biggest mall you ever saw in your life to get to your baggage.
That's That's pretty high up there, I think, on most people's list.
It shouldn't bother me, but it just does.
I, on the other hand, like to buy stuff.
On the way out?
Doesn't matter.
That's my. What's the last book you read? Better be a little brown book.
Last book I had my hands on was rereading Tolstoy.
Ah.
Anna Karenina.
What is your favorite hobby outside of music?
I love the little games on my phone.
Do you?
The little word games.
No more horseback riding for you?
Oh, that's boy. If I wasn't 75, I would jump right into
Right back
that.
on it.
But you got to be in shape because they're going to throw you off. So.
Do you have a guilty pleasure? Now that sugar, I guess, is out of your life.
I love the expensive massages down the street at the resort. There's a resort down the street from my house, and
Unwind.
I don't care what they cost. It's worth it.
Do you have any hidden talents outside of music?
I keep numbers pretty much occupy my head, and I remember them pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an addiction to numbers
Uh-huh.
that I try to keep private.
Keep private. This is a funny one. What color is your toothbrush? Never thought I would ask Booker T. Jones that question.
My toothbrush is blue and white and purple and red and all those
Okay.
different colors. Yeah.
Do you have a secret snack?
Yeah, my favorite is popcorn.
Butter
I like it.
on it?
Yeah, with the
Alright.
whole thing. Yeah, butter and salt. Yeah.
I think I can answer this question for you. How do you take your coffee? It's black.
As of about 8 days ago, I used to put lots of sugar and cream in it, but the doctor told me I was pre-diabetic. She said it
Okay.
with a look in her eye. Pre-diabetic, with a nice little smile.
Gotta stay, gotta
So,
stay away from the sugar.
Yeah, so I don't take sugar in it anymore.
What's the last movie you saw in theaters?
Last movie I saw in theaters, what was it? It was, that's been a while. Oh, we saw the movie, the African movie. Can't think of the name of it. It was a good movie.
We can come back to it. We can come back to that.
We've
What's-
been waiting to do everything until the book was
Exactly.
So you should ask what movie we want us.
Well, exactly.
Let's see.
How about this? What's the last gift you gave?
Oh, I don't give very much. Yes, I do, though.
For
What did I
music.
give?
What does he ask? Last
Isn't it-
gift.
Last gift that he gave. Oh,
Well, I gave
Little
her a
laugh.
computer. Yeah, I
There we
gave
go.
her a computer. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Booker's daughter is over here as well. On her computer that Booker had just given her. What cause? Do you have a cause that's dear to your heart? You want to bring a little attention to?
Yeah, right now, I would love to see education available in the neighborhood I grew up in, because I had to go 400 miles to find out stuff
Mm-hmm.
that should have been right around the corner.
So people are into this bucket list thing.
That's the Stax Academy. That's, the tuition should be cheap to Memphis State.
Right.
People should get to go there. They should be able to afford that.
You've probably done a lot of things in your life. Is there anything on your bucket list that you haven't done yet? You want to skydiving, bungee jumping, none of that?
I wanna cruise Europe. I haven't done that. I would love to go to the countries in Eastern Europe where all the masterpieces were written, just to see those places and to get that feeling. Because I got such a feeling when I was in France, and it actually influenced me to write music.
Right.
So I was surprised by that.
And this is similar to that, but one country you want to go that you haven't been yet. We talked about this a little before, but
I think I want to go to Cameroon. I want to see women that look like my mother.
yeah, that'd be an experience to go down there. All right, I'm gonna stop torturing you with questions, but you got to pick this book up. It's an incredible read. Really one of the best music memoirs ever written. PremierCollectibles.com/bookERT. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
Sitting
Thank
down
you
with
for
me.
having me.
And thank you everyone for watching.